Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to be making some kind of curried lamb, Persian lamb, and then some saag. We have some rice. We're going to be making up some naan. So let's start by chopping up our onions. We're going to get these sauteing, and then we're going to prep up our naan. Okay. So these are kind of tiny onions here, but we're going to dice up an onion and I'm going to have it start cooking up in my tagine here, which is where we're going to be cooking up our lamb. We're going to kind of do a lovely, kind of a simple sauteed lamb with some onions and peppers, parsley, some green onions, and some, just fresh herbs. There's my olive oil. Let me add in about, I want to say 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I want enough to kind of coat the bottom of my tagine here. We're going to add this in. Okay. My spoon's right over here. Let's give a good stir here, kind of coat everything with our olive oil. And then we're going to start working on our naan. So we're going to use our sourdough discard for this. We're going to start off with 1 cup of sourdough discard. This is a great recipe to use to get rid of your sourdough starter when you want to, or discard if you make a lot of it. Give it a little stir here. And then we need 1 whole cup. We'll just have to pour it out this way. And there we go. Almost to the top. Perfect. So 1 whole cup of our sourdough discard. And we're going to use a 1/2 cup of sour cream. Now you could use plain yogurt if you wanted to, but I never have plain yogurt, so I'm always using sour cream. And I'm just going to eyeball my 1/2 cup instead of trying to measure it and scoop it all out. So we want a 1/2 cup of sour cream. There we go. 1 more squeeze to be for good measure. We're going to give this a good mix. And then we are going to add in a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And this is going to be for our naan. There. Just mixing it around because I don't want any clumps. And now we're going to add a 1/4 cup of olive oil. There we go. We're going to stir this in. We're starting with all of our wet ingredients before we add in our dry ingredients. We're going to add in 6 tablespoons of water, which is the same as 90 milliliters. We're going to kind of give this a good stir around. And then we're going to take a quick pause because my onions over here are starting to sizzle up. So I just want to give them a nice stir. Okay. Trying to get these kind of whisked together. And we're going to add in 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Let me grab my measures. So 1.5 teaspoons of salt, which is the same as 1/2 tablespoon. Add that in. Now we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Oh, must have grabbed my unopened one. And then 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 and 2, and 1/2 of baking soda. We'll give this a good mix, and then we'll add in 3 cups of flour for the base of our naan. We'll give it a good little knead, and then we're going to let it sit and hydrate a little bit because you want it to kind of soak up the liquid and the flour rehydrate before we start cooking it up. Just makes for a softer naan, a more pillowy one. But when we add in the baking powder and the baking soda, you can already see it's starting to get nice and fluffy. That's the reacting with it, with the natural acids in the sour cream as well as in the starter. Okay, let's add in 3 cups of all-purpose flour. We don't need to waste bread flour on this. So 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do a good stir with my Danish whisk here and mix it up. And it's going to have kind of a dry shag with it, and then we'll knead it together until we've got that nice kind of pillowy texture.
Have you ever made heroes?
Yeah, I have actually. Costco sells the good hero meat. So a lot of times I'll make the naan and then I'll just get that instead, because making homemade like hero meat is a labor of love. I'll tell you, it takes a hot minute to get all of that together, and then you have to shave it, and you kind of need a rotisserie for it. But I have made it before. It's a lot of work. But Costco has really good stuff that you can buy just for the hero meat part, and it's delicious for the lamb hero. I've done chicken heroes before too, but they're not quite as good as a lamb. That kind of shaved lamb. Okay, we're gonna knead this together real quick. Let me get my flour out of the way. That way it's not taking up so much space. Let's give our onions a quick stir real quick. They're sauteing up. They smell lovely. And I'm going to just kind of crunch all of these together into a ball first. And we'll dump out the rest of this shag. And we're going to give it a good couple kneads. Now, the rising factor in this dough is going to be the baking soda and the baking powder. So this is not one that you have to let sit to give it a poof, but I do let it sit for a few minutes before we start kind of cooking it up so that the flour can hydrate, but you don't need it for the leavening process. And I'm just kind of getting all these little yeast crumbles here, or flour crumbles. And you just want to knead it together until you've got kind of a somewhat smooth dough. So just a minute or two. You don't have to knead a long time like you're doing with regular bread, where you're creating, like breaking those gluten chains. You're not necessarily doing it here. You're just kind of making it until you don't have a lumpy dough anymore. Okay. And then we're just going to let this sit and hydrate. Let me go give my hands a quick rinse. And then we'll be on to our rest for our lamb tagine. We're going to cut up our peppers, and we're going to saute our sweet peppers here, our bell peppers, in with our onions. But I wanted our onions to get a little time to caramelize up first. So we have a red pepper, red bell pepper, and a yellow one here. I find they have a nicer flavor than the green ones. Green one's a bit more bitter. We'll chop these up, kind of a bigger dice. That way you have those nice little, when you're serving it up with the rice, you'll have these nice little onion or pepper chunks. So nothing super fancy. We are going to debeard it a little bit, take these little bits off. And a nice, just somewhat large dice to it. And we'll do the same with our yellow one. I always like to cut my peppers from the inside, because the inside is just a little bit easier to cut versus from the outside in. Your life is more likely to slip on that skin on the outside.
You have a question, where do you get your recipes?
A lot of times they're just of my own making. I know what spices and stuff go together, or I'll go to a restaurant and I try something and I'm like, ooh, I've got to recreate this at home. I have a really good palate, so I'm pretty good at like picking out spices and foods. And then sometimes I'll consult like a basic recipe. I have a lot of cookbooks, although I feel like that's a dying age, cookbooks are. Since you can just go online and get so many recipes nowadays. Give us a nice little stir here. And then let's start cubing up our lamb. So this is a butterfly kind of lamb leg. So we're going to cut it up into some nice, cubes for our tagine here. And then we'll let them saute up, and then I'll put the lid on and we'll let them kind of steam cook. I'm going to take off any big chunks of fat that I see here. There we go. And you're just going to kind of cut it into nice, good sized cubes. They'll shrink up a little bit when you cook them. But I find that a nice, good sized cube works really well for this because it's going to be kind of stewed in some spices. And lamb is such a great tender meat for this. You can also use this with chicken or beef. But I feel like these spices pair really well with lamb. There we go. Get the first bit. I'm using a cleaver here to cut it up. Cleavers, these big fat knives like this, they're really great for cutting through meat. They have a good heft to them and a long blade that helps cut through the thicker meats. I will say, if you do a lot of your own meat prep, like chopping it up, cubing it up, these are great to have. I didn't get one until a couple years ago, and I use it a lot. I'm going to take off this big chunk of fat here, since that won't be any good. I'm going to save those two little bits here. Again, if you're doing a roast, the fat can stay on, but since we're doing kind of a saute here, you want to take off some of those bits of fat because they're not going to be as nice. They'll just end up being chewy in your end product. We'll toss that one out. Since my meat cutting board is slowly running out of space. There we go. Cube these up, add to the pile. Let's see if I can take off this fatty part here. Again, you don't want to have the fat. It will just be chewy and kind of ruin your end product. Let's give our peppers and onions a little stir. You want them to saute up. These are going to help flavor, season up the lamb as well. But we're going to use a handful of spices in there. Give it some nice flavors. I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to cook my lamb today. I was thinking of doing something along the Moroccan side, but then I decided I didn't really want, Moroccans known for having a little bit sweeter flavors in their meals, and I wasn't feeling that today. I tend to like my meats and stuff more savory than sweet. So I'm going to do instead, we're going to do some diced up parsley, onions, peppers, some dried oregano, paprika, some more savory flavors. Will be lovely in it. And we're almost done here cubing this guy up. And then we can work on, I will say it's more of like a Middle Eastern Indian food. We're going to do a kind of a play on saag as well for a side dish for this because we're going to have some sticky rice. So it's kind of an all over dish, but there's some of my favorite things that I love to eat. And we have 10 over tonight for dinner. So it's kind of fun when I have more people who like my taste in food. We get a little bit more adventurous. But my kids do love lamb, and so they'll be happy with that. Okay. Let's get these last few chunks. There we go. I'm going to throw away these bits of fat. We're done with this. Let me give my hands a quick rinse.
Have you ever made a mango sticky rice?
I have not made a mango sticky rice. only like only three of us in our family like mangoes, which is me, Torin, and Teddy. So we don't do a lot of mango stuff here. Although I think that would be delicious. I like that mango. I think it's called lasa or not. It's like that drink you get at Indian restaurants. It's so good. Finally got myself some new garlic. There we go. And we're gonna add a little bit of this into our peppers and onions with a little bit of that juice. It'll add a little bit more flavor. About a tablespoon of garlic here. I'm gonna let that saute up. Add some lovely flavors. We're going to use my Worcestershire sauce, and we're going to sprinkle a little bit of this over our lamb here. I'm going to give it a nice little seasoning. And then we're going to sprinkle some paprika. You want about half a tablespoon. We're going to do some onion powder, about a teaspoon or so. And we're going to use a little bit of, where is my cumin? Some cumin, I want to say about a teaspoon, if it will come out for me evenly.
Yeah, question. What does lamb taste like?
It's gamier than beef. It's really tender, has a lovely flavor in the sense it pairs well with sage, but it is a bit gamey. So a bit more than beef. So we're going to add about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then a good helping of garlic salt. We're going to give this a nice kind of coat with our hands here. Mix all of these flavors in. Have them kind of in there. And then we're going to add them to our onions and peppers over here. And we'll saute them off. So we're going to add them all. We're going to saute them all together. This is not one where you have to do in batches. I'm just stealing up some of these spices that are in the little crevices. Okay. Let me give my hands a quick rinse here. And so here is, we're going to cook them off in our tangine, and then we'll add the lid on. And this is kind of like a cast iron bottom. And then this, if you've never seen a tangine before, we've got the ceramic top, which helps circulate the air and keep your lamb nice and tender and moist as it cooks. So delicious. You can pop these in the oven as well. And it's one of those things you can use it like a Dutch oven and let it slow cook. But we're going to give it a couple of stirs here. And then we'll add it back on. Let me grab my spoon holder for this. And let's work on. We're going to add some fresh parsley to that towards the end. Put it right here. Let's chop up an onion. Let's do 2 onions for this. This is going to be for our saag, but we're not doing it like a traditional like Indian saag. We're going to throw in some zucchini and some curry powder in there. So it's more of like a mix, kind of like a curried spinach, but with a lot of the similar flavors of a saag. It's one of my favorites. The things that I make. I love a good saag, especially a saag paneer with that cheese in it. My family does not, but since we're having a couple extra tonight who also kind of like Indian food or whatnot, I decided to do Indian type food. So let's cut up these 2 onions. These are yellow onions. They'll caramelize up nicely. They work really well for being sauteed.
You have a question, what saag?
Saag is a curried spinach. It's like a traditional Indian dish that you serve with, rice. Sometimes it has chickpeas in it, potatoes, or paneer, which is an Indian cheese. So it's really lovely if you like Indian food. Here we go. Oh, let me add my oil in first. We're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of oil. 1, 2. And let's start sauteing off our onions. And then we're going to make an herby paste or in there before we add in our spinach and our zucchini. So zucchini is typically not in saag, but I figured it would go well with it. Those flavors or textures work well together. Okay, let's get our zucchini cubed up here. So we're going to just cut off the ends, and I'm going to cut these. I'm going to quarter them, and then we'll slice them up, and we'll actually start sauteing them first. And then we'll start adding in the spinach a little by little until it completely wilts down. Here we go. So we've got one zucchini quartered. And let's get the next one.
Got a couple questions on the green pot.
Yes. So this is called a tagine, which is used in a lot of Moroccan cooking. It has kind of a cast iron base, so a skillet where you can saute it up. And then this top is ceramic. And as it cooks, it helps spin the air around so that it keeps things nice and moist. And things, you can see the condensation in there. But it's a great way to kind of cook your food and keep them moist and tender. Especially like when you're stewing something. So I'm going to turn it up a smidge. We're going to let this start to kind of cook all the way through into those spices. And then we'll add a big, huge helping of parsley at the end. Okay. Let me grab another spoon for our soon-to-be saag. We're going to let those caramelize up. We'll add a little bit of garlic in there as well. Okay, and let's take our naan. We're going to start. The naan is a slow process to cook up because you're going to cook it on a skillet that's nice and warm, but it will do things. We're not going to do a lot of times I do really big naans, but since we're not doing them in the hero pocket today, I'm going to do slightly smaller ones.
A question, where did you get the tagine from?
That is Le Creuset. So I got it, I think, several years ago. I was going to borrow my mom's today to do 2 of them because we kind of have a lot, but hers is at my brother's house. So we just have one, but it is Le Creuset. I've had it. I don't know if they still make it, but I'm sure they do. But we've had it for a while. We're going to cut it through. And I'm going to make, let's see, I'm trying to think of how many I'm going to make out of this. We're doing just a bunch of little ones, so kind of like little dippers that you can kind of dip into the saag or our lamb dish here. So I'm going to just kind of pinch into a ball, and then we'll just roll it out into a little circle here. You don't have to go super thin. The baking soda in here will allow it to pillow up and kind of puff up into a nice kind of thick little pillowy tortilla. Think about a really fat tortilla. If you've never had naan before, that's what it's like. It's pita bread is often dry, so this isn't dry. It has that, we use sour cream, but the yogurt is a traditional, and that helps keep it nice and moist and tender. And then we'll brush a little butter on it when we're done. And that's kind of key to making it malleable after it sits. Okay. That should be nice and warm. We're going to let these first 3 kind of cook up here. A lot of times I'll do a big one, and then we'll put our meat inside it and do like a little pocket with it. Okay. Let's make sure I got my back one going. Give this a little stir. See how it keeps all that steam in there? It just kind of cooks lovely. Once we've got a good cooking through on the lamb, then I'll leave that on for a bit to let it really steam, but it helps keep that meat so tender and so flavorful.
I have a question. Does the naan have sourdough discard?
It does. This one has a whole cup of sourdough discard in it, so it's a great recipe to use when you need to get rid of a lot of your discard. They do have lots of naan recipes out there, that don't use sourdough discard.
And do you make your own flour tortillas?
I do make my own flour tortillas. I do it a lot. Mine are always, I always say they're like fat flour tortillas versus like the super thin ones, but I do make them quite a bit. Anytime I do like a, Mexican themed food, I make my own. And add in a little bit of our garlic, about a teaspoon. Let this saute up. And then we're going to add in and get all my spices ready. Got turmeric, curry powder, cumin, coriander, some garam masala, and ginger. We're going to do our ginger first because I grabbed my lemongrass, not my ginger. So let me go grab my ginger out of the fridge. They both yellow. They both look the same. Let's see. Where are you? You're not there. Ah, here it is. It's in the door. So my ginger paste, I'm going to do that first because it is wet. And I'm going to do about a teaspoon squeeze. Ginger's got a lot of flavor in it, so you don't need too much. If you're using dried ginger, you're going to want to use like half a teaspoon. Dried ginger is much more potent in flavor. It's got a bit more spice to it. Okay. Now we're going to add in about a teaspoon of curry powder, a half a teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of coriander. You're going to want ground coriander, not the seeds. A teaspoon of cumin. And then we're going to add in a teaspoon of garam masala, which is it's a mix of Indian spices. There we go. I'm going to give this a good stir. I always like to heat it up in the oil first before I add anything else because it really helps bring out those spices, which I find are so delicious. But that oil helps the spices, I think, bind better. So we're going to give this a nice good saute in. And then we're going to add in our zucchini, and then we'll add in our spinach bit by bit. And then at the end, we'll add in a little bit of cream. And typically, saag is made with yogurt. But again, I never keep yogurt on. And we're going to do cream for just a slightly richer, velvety texture. Okay. Let me give a nice good stir around. I'm going to turn this down nice and low at the back so the zucchini can start sweating out its natural liquid and moistening up the bottom. Okay. Let's check over here. Grab another set of tongs. That one's still a bit blonde. Same here. We'll rotate. Try to make sure I have it over just right. My skillet is a little bit bigger than my burner, so we're going to keep them right towards the middle here. Give a nice little stir. You can see we've got our flavors soaking up. Juices coming up here, just lovely. Beautiful. And I'm just going to give it again, just a little poke around, mix it around so that we don't have any one that's just getting a lot of the heat. There we go. And now I'm going to start turning this down to a low simmer. So about a 3, so it can kind of simmer up nicely. Let's get our zucchini. Good stir here. And I'm just going to add a smidge of water here. Grab a little bowl because I've got just a little stickage. So about a tablespoon of water. That way, this will kind of help it start on its kind of steaming process. I don't want to add my cream in yet because it can curdle if you add it in too soon. There we go. Just the right amount. Sometimes the zucchini will sweat out quickly. Sometimes it needs a little bit of help. Okay, while we wait for those to cook, we're going to prep our tomato, cucumber, and fresh and basil salad. It just goes well nicely with these. Have a fresh salad with it. Okay. So I'm just going to flip this over. Use my kind of unspiced side. Let me do right here. Turn it down, get a little side off, steam off just a little. You grab a paper towel here. It's starting to get a little bubblicious. There we go. We'll just do it just off. And now, okay, for our cucumbers, I'm using baby cucumbers. That way you don't have to peel them. But if you have the regular cucumbers, just give them a quick peel for the salad. That way they taste a little bit nicer. So we'll just give a couple slices here. English cucumbers also work great for this because they have that more delicate skin on them.
Have you ever traveled east to any of these countries?
I have been to Morocco, but that is it. I've been all over Europe, but Morocco is the only country that I have been that has, the tangines kind of from there. Growing up, my family, my grandparents kind of retired to the south of Spain, and you could take a ferry boat to Morocco. So I would go and visit them in the summers, and they took me to Morocco once. So it was a lot of fun, but that's about the extent of it. I think I'd like to travel maybe one day, but kids kind of keep you close. We do cruises and stuff like that, but it's hard to travel with a big family nowadays, especially with how expensive everything is. I hope to get to Germany to visit family and Sweden to see where my mom is from. But and kind of that's my hope in a couple of years, take everyone to Europe, do like a little quick like tour of everything. We're going to throw in some tomatoes here. Let me give these a quick rinse. And then I'm going to quarter my tomato, or not quarter. I don't know why I keep saying that. I'm halving them. That way, when I'm going to put a little bit of a balsamic glaze on them, and that way they'll kind of soak up those flavors. We'll also put in some fresh mozzarella and fresh basil, just a really light, happy salad that will go well with our dinner tonight. Here we go. And looks like we are ready with our first sets of naan here. We've got this lovely pillowing. You see that nice kind of pillowing in those things. Now to keep them super soft, I'm just going to take some room temperature butter and spread a little bit over the top of them. This gives them that nice, like, squishy texture that is great for like bending them and being malleable. Okay, let's give a quick roll out. Let's get our next set going. And then we got to steam up. Then I'm going to switch my my tangine to my back burner over here to cook slowly, and we're going to heat up our rice that we're going to be having with our dinner tonight. I just bought some sticky rice from the freezer section. I love it. It's a great way to get really good rice. I can cook rice at home, but it's never as good as the sticky rice you can buy there. So we'll be using that rice. Don't go. Don't disappear on me. I'm going to turn this down a smidge. Okay, we're going to start adding in some of our zucchini, or not our zucchini, some of our baby spinach now. If you're using regular spinach, you're going to want to chop it up. That way it won't be as big and bulky in there. We'll start little by little. I'm going to put the lid on. We're going to let it kind of steam up and reduce down, and then we'll add some more in. Right now, I'm going to turn off this one, and we're going to turn on my back burner over here to nice and low. And this guy is going to migrate all the way over here. I say sometimes I feel like I need like a 20 burner stove for what I want to cook. But you just make do with what you have. We lost a spinach leaf. Let's add them back in here. Okay, so we're just going to steam up our rice. It's already pre-cooked. I'm just going to heat it up in here with a little bit of water, and it will make it just lovely texture. You can do it in the microwave as well, but I found this way just gives it the best. Like, just add a bit more water to it, and it makes it just a perfect texture. So it's good old innovations, but you can't quite make rice as good as this. So let me turn on my burner here, and then I'm going to add a little bit of water already to the pan. That way you don't get any rice to stick on it. So we'll just start it in here, and I'm going to add in our rice. And so you can steam it in the bag in the microwave. It takes about like 8 or so minutes, but in here it works well. And that way it's easier to serve up. Get this going. I also use this rice to make fried rice. Because you always want to use like day-old rice for fried rice, and this makes really good fried rice. Let it come out. It's super sticky. Okay. Turn that on. Where's my lid? We're gonna let it steam in here. Of course, there we go.
You have a question? Where do you get that?
In the refrigerator or the freezer section at your grocery store. I got mine from Publix, but I know Kroger carries it as well, and Target. Let's get these. Let me turn this down a smidge since there seems to be cooking nice and warm here. And let's roll out our next couple. 4. This one's a bit big. So this is just such a, I will say, naan is so good homemade. My kids love it over the store-bought one because it is so tender, and it's not dry. It's better. We use it in place of like Greek like pita bread. It's great in hummus and dipping. This is going to be great in the naan or in the saag.
You got a request to see the box?
Yes. So this is the innovation, very good marketing, but it's sticky rice. You right in the freezer section where you can buy like the frozen skillet meals. They have it there. PF Chang's also makes a version of it, and it's also just as good. I just buy whatever's on sale for the week. These ones were on sale. There we go. Perfect. They're puffed up. These, once you get the first batch, take the longest. The second batch of these cook really quickly. I'm going to turn it down to about a 2 now because my skillet is nice and hot. And then we're going to rub a little bit of butter over it to keep them nice and malleable. And you could also, this is where if you want to add flavors, you could add garlic salt, some fresh parsley on here, or cilantro to give it, some different flavors. Let's check on this real quick. You can see my spinach has already started to wilt down. So we're going to add in our next batch. And then I like to kind of mash up my zucchini with this. We're kind of getting it nice and, thinned out, nice and seasoned, I will say. There we go. Just a couple.
You have a question? Would the naan also work like a torta?
I wonder if they mean like a tortilla, because a torta is a cake. So, it would work like a tortilla. A lot of times I make them a lot bigger, and then we'll eat like our lamb and everything in it, or our chicken, whatever we're having. So yes, it works like a tortilla. Now you can make them much bigger. Typically I make one big one at a time, but these are going to be dipping, so we're not making that many. Okay, let's add in our next batch. We're going to use 2 bags of spinach.
They clarified a torta that they split and stuff inside.
Oh, okay. So yeah, kind of like a pita too. You can't they don't really open up inside. So the best way you would do it is to fill it, is to fold it and these stuff. But yeah, it doesn't kind of break apart like a pita or I guess a torta. It doesn't break apart like that. Those you typically it's like a slightly different recipe with it with the yogurt or the not or the sour cream in it. It keeps it softer, and so they don't. You get a little bit of bubbles here, but you don't get a great big bubble that you do with them. Okay, let's get these tomatoes in here. We're gonna chop up some fresh basil and add in some mozzarella pearls. And then we'll put a little bit of balsamic glaze over here and sprinkle a little bit of garlic salt on it. Just a nice, refreshing things. And then we're going to chop up some parsley and green onions to add to our lamb that is stewing in our tagine. There we go. So we've got that. If you've never seen these at the store, I absolutely love them. They're called mozzarella pearls. And so they're like fresh mozzarella in little itty bitty balls. So you're going to take out the big one here. And then look, they break apart in the little balls. You get them in your deli section. But they're really good. I use it in pasta salads a lot or these fresh, little tomato salads. So good.
You have a question. Are you making your homemade ranch?
I am not making my homemade ranch today. This one's just going to be glazed with balsamic vinaigrette. But I do love my homemade ranch. Looks like these next set are done. So we're going to pop these off. And we're going to give them a nice coating with butter once I get my next kind of balls out. But these are just so good. And you just a little spread over them. That's all you need. Not very much, but that just adds a nice little pillowy texture. It softens them up so they don't get crunchy. We got one. Pinch off another ball here. And these, I will say, these are so good. These never last more than a day in our house. Got our next one. And let me pinch off. And then we got to give everything. We're getting down to the wire now. Just a little bit left. Okay, let's give this a good stir. I think I need to transfer my cucumber tomato salad, everything to a slightly bigger bowl because I underestimate, and that tends to happen. I tend to always put things in smaller things than they should be. It's my wishful thinking that it will fit. Okay, let's give it a flip. Makes it a little mixing up easier. Okay, now let's chop up our basil. My basil in my garden is a bit overpicked right now. So I was like, oh, I'll just buy some more. I kept picking and picking from it. And I'm like, okay, I need to let it bloom some, otherwise it will not thrive. Here we go. So we're going to pick off all these leaves off the stems here. Gave us a lot of stems today. And then we're going to dice them up and add them to our little pasta, or not our pasta salad, our tomato, cucumber, mozzarella. I do make a pasta salad that has almost all of these ingredients, except minus the cucumbers, and add pasta. There we go. But it's just so fresh. Great flavor. And I feel like it's such a good summertime, salad that you can have, that it's just not your traditional garden salad. Here we go. So we're going to chop up our basil. And just nice and kind of fine. Makes it the flavors go everywhere. I'm going to toss this in. Get all of these off of me. Let's give our kind of Saag over here a little bit of a stir. I'm going to add in my last batch of spinach. And I'm using fresh. You could also use frozen spinach for this. It works well. This is one of those when I say that the frozen actually works fairly good for it. Did we lose a leaf here? There we go. Tend to lose one. Okay, let's flip. These are looking good. Okay. And let me check on my rice here. Let me get a nice scoop here. It's starting to thaw. I can hear it. You can see the steam coming up. There we go. And a good stir. This should be ready in just a second. Okay. Let's put that back on there. Let's drizzle our little salad here with some balsamic vinaigrette. Or not balsamic vinegar, balsamic glaze. So just a good swirl around. This is balsamic vinegar that has been reduced. So it's thicker, not as tart, and a little bit sweeter. We're going to give it a light sprinkle of garlic salt and a, oh, hi, Bruni, walking by my feet, and just a splash of olive oil. And then we can toss this up with our tongs here. And we're going to mix up our salad. And there we've got this lovely, beautiful, fresh tomato, mozzarella, cucumber salad. That's just going to be amazing with our dinner tonight. It will be a really nice, fresh thing that goes really well with our dishes. Okay. Let's get our parsley and our green onions here chopped up because these are going to go in our lamb, which is kind of stewing here. So I'm just going to break off the tip. My parsley, I feel like I need to buy more plants for my garden because I have overpicked them. So I was like, we'll give it a little break. I have 4 parsley plants right now, but I think I need even more going. I have 8 basil plants, and that's just how much I've cooked off. So we want about a cup of fresh parsley here.
No question. Are the kids going to eat everything here?
They will eat, I will say they will eat most of it. They'll vary with different ones. I think they've grown up eating a lot of my food here. They'll pick out the lamb and definitely eat the lamb and the naan. The saag, I think the little ones will eat the saag, but I don't think the older ones will. They'll try it, but I don't think they'll eat it. My Evie will love the salad because she loves tomatoes, and I think Jackie will too. So they all have various flavors. We also have fruit. Everyone will eat the naan for sure and the lamb. So, there's a bit on here that everyone will like. Speaking of our naan, let's go check on these. I think they're ready for their next pillowing. Look at that. See how quickly they cook up? Just beautiful little naan dippers here. And perfect. We'll make our couple more balls to go on. And it's really easy. It's one thing that you can just kind of quickly roll up and cook. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it is so good. This is one of those things that I'm like, these are just so good. And it's a very malleable, flexible dough. So it's not a stiff dough, but it's really easy to work with. Okay, let's get our fresh parsley and green onions chopped up. We're going to add them to our lamb, and then we should be able to finish up everything. We'll add a little bit of cream to our saag, and dinner should be just about ready. So I'm going to mince all of these together. These fresh herbs, we're going to put them on the lamb, on our tagine, and they will just really brighten up that stewed lamb.
You have a question? Are your mom or stepdad picky about their food?
Oh, no, not at all. The picky ones in this family is my husband, and I feel like he passed down his pickiness to some of our kids. But no, we call my stepdad, he's like the garbage disposal because he will eat anything and everything. He is not picky about it unless it's cow's tongue. And then we made cow's tongue for him once, like beef tongue. And he ate it and he liked it until we told him what it was, and then he couldn't do it. I think it's delicious. But he'll eat everything except pumpkin soup. He doesn't like pumpkin soup. There we go. So we've got all of our herbs right here minced up. Let me give our Saag a little stir here. I'm going to go grab my cream out of the refrigerator to pour in there. Saag, typical Indian Saag uses yogurt, but we're going to be using cream. Gives a bit more of a luscious flavor to it. And we're going to add in about, I want to say, you want a good amount of cream here. So about a half a cup to start with. We might add a little bit more. There we go. And I'm going to add in a little bit of garlic salt to season this up since we haven't added any of our salt in yet.
Do you have a question? Any dessert tonight?
No dessert tonight, although we do have some fresh strawberries from the farmer's market that my aunt picked up. So we might have those with some cream and sugar. Here is our, it's hot. Let me grab a thing to pick this up from.
And another question, how many kids do you have?
I have 5 kids. So, and they range from 20 months to 15 years. Okay, we're going to add in our fresh herbs all to our lamb over here. There we go. And these are just going to add such a bright, happy flavor to this. And then we're going to mix it up. But do you see how it just, all of our lamb, you know how it was billowing up before and now it's shrunk down. It's nice and tender. It's soaking in its own juices. It really just, it's a really interesting way of cooking, but it's so delicious. And it's just fun. I always say the tangine look is just really fun. Let me check on my rice here. Well, it looks like we've got our lovely sticky rice that is ready for serving. So I'm going to flip these. And let me give my Saag just a quick stir. And then I'm going to taste a little bit, see if we need to add anything else. And if not, we are ready to serve up. Delicious. Okay, let's grab my plate here. And I'll show you how we're going to serve up today's dinner. So let me turn off my back burner first. I'm going to turn off both burners here and my lamb. Okay, we are going to start with a big serving of our sticky rice here. And I like to spread it out because we're going to do some Saag on it. And here, now we're going to add in our zucchini and spinach Saag, which will be so lovely. And we've got our lovely lamb that is cooked in cumin, coriander, fresh peppers and onions. And then we will have our homemade naan on the side. And then we will finish off with our delicious fresh tomato salad with basil, cucumbers, fresh mozzarella for this all around kind of great kind of Middle Eastern Indian flair to this dish. But the tangine cooking just really makes such a tender naan and the flavors just all work really well together. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what I'm making for my family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for the video, and cook along with me again. Well, guys, thank you again for joining us here today. Don't forget to like